Well, because as we see now, there are many Republicans that don't want to fix it. They don't want to repeal it. They don't want to replace it. They are Susan Collins, Shelley Moore, Capito, and Lisa Murkowski. Which takes me, ladies and gentlemen, to this piece I referenced earlier in a website called The Week. And it's by David Faris, Faris, Why the GOP Congress Will Be the Most Unproductive in 164 Years. Now, folks, the inaction of elected Republicans is one of the great illustrations of how just infected or corrupt the Washington, D.C. establishment is. I still don't know what their thought. What are they thinking? 7 years. Voting to repeal Obamacare. Campaigning on it. Moment of truth. Not interested. What do they think people are going to... How do they think people are going to react? What's the need for a Republican Party? What good is voting Republican? You know, for many people, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to straighten this country out for their children and grandchildren. Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Republican Party can't be bothered. After seeking votes, very assurances and promises to do just that. Moment of truth, they can't do it. Now we find out the Republican caucus in the Senate is infected with essentially leftist members. Collins, Murkowski, Capito. These three female leftists in the Republican caucus are running the Senate, not Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is not running the Senate. These three women are running the Senate. The conservative Republicans in the Senate are not running the Senate. Three liberal women who call themselves Republicans are running the Senate. Let me give some pull quotes from this piece at The Week. It turns out that the GOP-controlled Congress can't seem to pass any meaningful laws at all. Either they've forgotten how, or the divisions in their own increasingly radicalized caucus are proving too difficult to surmount. Whatever the explanation, thus far the GOP legislators are on track to be the least productive group since at least the Civil War. Let me see if these next bites have it. This guy makes the point. This is mind-boggling. This guy makes the point that the extreme radicalism in Congress is to be found in the Republican Party. That the left, the Democrats, there's not much difference between the most radical Democrat like Bernie Sanders and the most moderate Democrat like Ben Cardin. But when you go to the Republican side, the difference between the mainstream Republicans, like the women, this guy praises these three women as the conscience of the Republican Senate. And everybody else is a radical right-wing extremist way out there. And he makes the point, it's quite telling, isn't it, that the most sensible things being said in the Senate are from the three women Republican senators? This is what I mean about seeing things through the eyes of the left. This guy is a leftist. And, of course, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins and Capito, these are the conscious, these are the brilliant Republicans in the Senate. And they are mainstream, just like the Democrats are mainstream. And over here, McConnell and the rest of these Republicans, they're the extremist radicals. And that's why the Republican Party's in its dead bad shape, because there's so many extreme radicals there that they can't unify. When in truth, all of the Democrats are some of the most extreme left-wing radicals ever elected. And that's why there isn't any gap. They all are identical. There are no moderate Democrats in the Senate. Maybe Joe Manchin, but there's one. This guy makes this point repeatedly. He says, and it's not like Susan Collins is alone. She's part of a cluster of 3 Republican senators, along with Lisa Murkowski and Shelley Moore Capito, who are much more liberal than the rest of the caucus. By the way, he says, it's not a coincidence the GOP's 3 most reasonable senators are liberal and women. Moreover, Mike Lee is part of a bloc of 5 far-right radicals, along with Jeff Flake, Rand Paul, Ben Sasse, and Ted Cruz, who are substantially more conservative than anyone in the Senate during Obama's first 2 years in office. In a sane political system, there is a 0% chance that Mike Lee and Susan Collins will be members of the same political party. I can't argue with that. What it means is that Susan Collins ought to be a Democrat, and Murkowski ought to be a Democrat. Anyhow, I called it. When I got that alert on my watch, I told you exactly who the 3 were going to be that voted no to repeal. And it was those 3.